the heart and soul behind every business. Stories. Welcome to Business Story of the Week, hosted by me, Joshua Laurie. From setbacks to comebacks, from tragedies to triumphs, we inspire entrepreneurs through conversations that matter. Witness the magic that turns dreams into reality. Whether it's your career, business, or life, your success is always one story away. This is Business Story of the Week.
This is Nikki Stone. Sorry, can I
Okay,
start that?
all right, that's fine. Let's do that one more time.
Am I supposed to say this is Nikki Stone or hi, I'm Nikki Stone? Or
It's whichever you want it. It's fine.
okay.
Yeah, so just basically introduce yourself and then the show. That's it.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, fantastic. It's fine. We'll do one more clap and then go.
Hi, this is Nikki Stone, and this is Business Story of the Week.
And ladies and gentlemen, that is a fantastic Nikki Stone. We have ourselves an Olympian as our guest for today. I am quite, very, very excited for this one. And of course, my name is Joshua. I am your host. And our question for today is, what does it take to turn fear into success? Well, Nikki is the perfect guest to answer that question for us today. At the Olympic Winter Games in Nagano, Japan, Nikki Stone became America's first ever Olympic champion in the popular and electrifying sport of aerial skiing. What made this performance so unbelievable was the fact that less than 2 years earlier, a chronic spinal injury prevented her from standing, much less skiing off a 12-foot tall snow jump that launches airless into 50 feet into the air. Nikki's accomplishments span far beyond sports. Of course, today she also has a master's degree in sports psychology and wrote a motivational bestseller, When Turtles Fly: Secrets of Successful People Who Know How to Stick Their Necks Out. I love that title. We need to talk a little bit about that, by the way. Because of her in-depth experience, the United States Olympic Committee invited Nikki to work with all of the Winter Olympic athletes on their mental strength as they arrive at the Olympic Games. Audience love hearing this award-winning international speaker inspirational, learning how they too can stick their necks out to reach outstanding accomplishments. And Nikki is going to share that insight with us today. Can you believe it, guys? Nikki, thank you so much for coming on the show. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, and I'm happy to be here.
Nikki, it's quite this remarkable story. Of course, I was very, very excited watching these previous Olympics, and I was just quite excited to have you on the show, of course. But before we really get into the rest of the stories, Nikki, we'd love to learn the origin stories, of course. What was the young Nikki like? Was the young Nikki always brave? Did she always was into skiing? What would the young Nikki say to the Nikki Stone of today?
Well, I was actually 5 years old when I told my parents I was going to win the Olympics someday. And
Wow.
I made my
Wow.
podium out of tables and chairs. And
Oh,
I
wow.
always had the
So
dream
cool.
of winning an Olympic medal. At the time, it was
So
in
cute.
gymnastics. And I grew
Oh.
up doing gymnastics and skiing recreationally. And I actually didn't start aerials until I was 18 years old.
Mhm,
And I did have fears. I actually am afraid of heights. And so going 50 feet in the air is terrifying. But I think I would tell future Nikki, if I go back in time, I'd say stick to what you know, always fight through, and you're going to end up on top someday.
End up on top someday by sticking to what you know and sticking your neck out, which is precisely what you did. 50 feet up in the air. My goodness, Nikki. But you also, prior to that, you suffered an injury before your, Olympic championship. Talk to us a little bit about that. How long were you training? What happened to why were you injured? And we'd love to know the story.
Okay, so 2 years before the Olympics, I was competing. I was ranked second in the world, and I wanted to be first
Wow.
because I had won the year before.
Mhm.
And I got to a contest in Germany where the other woman from Canada didn't make it to finals, and
Right.
the girl was in first place, and I knew I could pull ahead of her. But
Mhm.
also, as that year was going along, I felt some pain in my back from what I
Mhm.
thought was a muscle spasm.
Mhm.
And I ended up pushing myself at that contest because I wanted to be first in the world. And
Right.
I took my first jump and found that I couldn't bend forward in order to
Oh
stand
no.
up. So I sat and laid for a while to see if the muscle spasm was calmed down. And my physical therapist came over and said, "There's 5 minutes left of training. You have to do your second jump if you want to do it in the contest." And so I
Wow.
had him literally pick me up onto my feet since I couldn't bend forward, and went down the hill and off the jump. And it felt like I had 10 knives stabbing me in my lower back. And it's the type of pain that normally drops someone to their knees. And I was 50 feet in the air upside down. I don't know how, but I managed to get around to my feet. I collapsed right on impact, though, and went back and saw 10 different doctors, and each one of them told me the injury wasn't a muscle spasm, but I had basically destroyed 2 of the discs in my back,
Oh no.
and every single one of the 10 doctors told me that I was never going to be able to go back to aerial skiing because the injury I
Wow.
had was from the compression over time, that constant landing and injuring those discs. And to be able to go back to that sport, they thought would be an enormous challenge and something that would be outside the realm of possibility.
Wow, what a fascinating story. How did you overcome is, of course, the first question there. Nikki, this reminds me, of course, of a movie. You've probably been asked this many, many times. Molly's Game, who also suffered in the opening of her movies, and I believe it was, um, if I'm not mistaken, based on a true story as well. And quite the movie to watch for everyone. Have you seen this movie? And but of course, more importantly, how did you overcome that kind of injury less than 2 years later?
Yes. So I have seen the movie. Molly's brother, Jeremy Bloom, is actually a very good friend of mine.
Wow, of
And
course.
so I know Jeremy. We competed together.
Hmm.
He's a phenomenal athlete as well. Molly had
Hmm.
never made it to the World Cup level.
I
And one of the
see.
reasons these 10 doctors told me that I would never ski again
Hmm.
was because people typically wrap things up and they're not willing to push themselves.
Right.
And for me, it was finding the 11th doctor, continually pushing, not taking
Oh
no
my.
for an answer. And this doctor told me that I could come back from the injury, but it was going to take a lot of work. It was going to be very painful, and it was going to be a big risk because
Uh-huh.
what he had me do was lift heavy weights to build up the muscles in my back to support those injured discs. But in the process, it could blow out those discs completely.
Wow.
And there was a quote by General George S. Patton that helped me, and it said, "Success is how high you bounce after you hit rock bottom."
Wow.
And so when I was in the excruciating pain, I would take a super ball with me and I'd bounce the super ball and remind myself that if I wanted to bounce back, I had to stay strong. And it was
Wow.
that visual reminder that helped me push through a lot of that pain to be able to build up those muscles, to be able to come back just 1 year before the Olympic Games.
That is fascinating. What a story. And of course, like you lived through that, you endured it, and you now are teaching the same people that same mental resilience that you learned, and you're motivating them through as a speaker, as a motivational speaker, telling your story all around the world and everywhere, else that needs to hear that story. Nikki, this is very interesting. Your journey as an athlete, to motivational speaker, how would you say it compares to the mental preparation that you teach? Well, the mental preparations for Olympic athletes.
So there's so many similarities
Hmm.
within the business world and the athletic world.
Hmm.
And it was something that I learned through a philosophy that my parents taught me when I was little. They said
Yes.
you have to be like a turtle. And
Ah,
they said you
there
have
you
to be
go.
soft on the inside, you have to have a hard shell, and you have to be willing to
Hmm.
stick your neck out.
Hmm.
And this is something that I used throughout my entire career. And I use it when I speak to audiences today as well. And when I worked with the athletes, when they arrived at the games, was to make sure they have that passion or the soft inside. They have that hard shell or the focus, commitment, and the ability to overcome adversity. And they're willing to stick their neck out, making sure that they have the confidence and they're willing to take the risks and use teamwork to make sure we follow through with everything. And so this is very similar to what
I
businessmen
love
and
it.
women need
I
to
love
make
it.
sure that they can find their success. And there's so many parallels that tie in perfectly because they're lessons that we learn from sports that we can utilize the rest of our lives.
I love it. I love it. talk to us a little bit about that, the parallels later on, Nikki. But we need to talk about that book. Of course, you have a bestseller, a motivational bestseller. It's entitled what you just mentioned just now, When Turtles Fly. And it's the secrets of successful people who know how to stick their necks out. I love that title particularly because, of course, the symbolism with your aerial skiing where you're needing to stick your neck out for that final jump, so to speak, that ultimate act, the move, so to speak, that you need to achieve. And of course, you mentioned also the analogy when it comes to turtles. Talk to us a little bit more about the inspiration behind that, Nick. Talk to us about why why turtles basically, and why sticking your neck out is such an important analogy for business as well.
Yeah, so the philosophy was from my parents. The turtles are something that, these turtles are very resilient. They do have that hard shell, they do stick their neck out, they have that
Mm,
soft inside, and it's something that we all need no matter what field we're in. And I wrote this book because a lot of people told me that no matter what field you're in, it seems like there's so many parallels that you could use that for. And so I found about 40 different contributors from all different fields, from Nobel Prize winners to Fortune 500 CEOs to military heroes to children prodigy to award winning journalists, people like Lester Holt, Tommy Hilfiger,
wow,
Dr.
wow.
Stephen Covey, Steve Young, Shaun White, and they all shared their stories of success and how they used the turtle effect, or the parts of the turtle effect, the soft inside, the hard shell, and sticking their neck out, in order to find their success. And it
Fantastic.
was incredibly moving for me to understand how um, these parallels lie between every industry that you look at.
Right.
So it really helped me have a great understanding that there can be success no matter which avenue you take, as long as you find and use your turtle effect.
Wow, I love that. Of course, I want to keep that turtle analogy going for our audience and listeners here because I think it's fascinating. You have the parallels that come with it when in being an Olympic athlete and into business. If values or the mindset that you need to bring with you. There's the hard values or hard mindset, the cold the characteristics and personality, perhaps the softness, so to speak, that is inside the cold hard shell. What would be those hard and soft skills that you need, whether you are an Olympic athlete or a business owner? I love if you could share to us some traits that come to mind and the traits that you constantly teach as that hard shell and the traits as a softness inside that cold hard shell.
Yeah, so the softness goes along with having passion for what we do. You
That's
have to
it.
have that love,
Mm-hmm.
and that love comes in all shapes and forms, but we have to make sure that we always look back to understanding why we pursued what we did.
I
And
see.
there's always a reason, and sometimes we lose that reason, and sometimes we lose that focus on making sure that we're loving what we do. But if
Mm,
you have that love, it's going to help with any adversity, any distraction, any challenges you have, because that's the thing that's going to push us through, is the love for what we do.
I see.
And having that hard shell, a lot of it's overcoming adversity, to make sure that we're strong enough to withstand the things that are standing in our way. And there's always a way around. There's so
Always.
many people that give up when we get to the point where you feel defeat a number of times. But
I
you
love it.
have to keep knocking on that door. You have to keep pushing forward, and you have to know that there's always a path and a way to get there. It also makes sure that we're committed to what we're doing. We
Mm,
have to write down and have some accountability to reaching our goals. And I met Muhammad Ali, and the one thing he shared with me on tips for success is to make sure you have your goals in your pocket. And
I love that.
so we can always pull them out at any time and remind ourselves of what we're striving for, why we're pushing towards the things we are. And that's kind of the marriage between that soft inside and that hard shell. And it helps make us accountable to reaching those goals. And
I
we also
love
have to
it.
make sure we're focused. That hard shell also has that ability to focus on the
That's
key
it.
elements, the goals that we have in mind, so that we
Uh,
can reach those.
I love it. I love those analogies, and that you can find that in wherever you are. That you need those both traits, the hard skills and the soft skills, wherever you are, what stage you are in life and in business. I feel like you can use both. But Nikki, it's terrifying. It's terrifying to stick your neck out because the shell is hard. It's protection. It's warm, probably warm inside. You feel protected just staying there. So why even stick your neck out in the first place, right? This is perhaps more. It's a question for you as well, but of course a question for everyone in general. How do you, right where you are right now in your current stage of your life, Nikki? How do you stick your neck out regularly in your everyday life now compared to when you were preparing for the Olympics? I know there may be some similarities as well, but how do you get yourself to constantly do it? How do you get yourself to just keep sticking your neck out when you you don't know what's going to come down the moment that you do?
Yeah, so when I was growing up, my grandmother shared a quote with me, and she said, "The brave do not live forever, but the cautious do not live at all."
Oh wow, I
And
love it.
I used to ask myself all the time, do you want to make sure you're going out there and living, or do you want to live this safe life that ends up being boring or that you're not really experiencing and living? And so it always helped push me to try something harder, to go out there to accomplish something great. And there's an exciting feeling and going out there and conquering some of those challenges. I remember the first time I did my first double backflip in
Wow.
sport of aerials, and I was
Yes.
terrified. As I said, I'm afraid of heights. And at the time, I kind of got pushed there because I didn't want to be the athlete who walked back down the stairs and didn't take the jump. As we do summer training into a pool, we go off plastic ramps and flip and twist into a pool. And I did not want to walk back down the stairs. And so it actually got me off that jump that day. And I realized how much we have to gain from taking those risks and actually going out there and living and experiencing something greater than we thought possible. And there's such an uplifting feeling in that. And it's the same when I started speaking. I was nervous that my speech would come off well. I was nervous that it would touch audiences. And so I would get up right before I go to speak and have these nerves. And when I'd start speaking, it would disappear. And I was amazed to find out what an accomplishment it was to stand up in front of an audience when you're scared and push yourself. And it helps me every day to take those chances and take those risks to make sure that I am always going out there and living and not having that safe, cautious life.
I love it. Love it. I mean, of course, Nikki, it goes back to our first question, right? Because this hard shell may be comfortable, it may be warm, but like you said, cautious people, that they don't live at all. I mean, you could stay in that shell as a turtle. If you never stick your neck out, you never get to live. You never get to see the sun. You never get to eat. Basically, you could stay there, but you don't really live life. And the question to open the show was, how does it take? What does it take to turn fear into success? And I feel like that's what you have done in your life, and that was you continue to teach today. Nikki, as we begin wrapping this up, how would you answer that question yourself right now? How do you take fear of sticking your neck out, putting yourself out there? How do I use this fear to fuel my success and wherever I am in life?
Yeah. So another quote that I like by Wayne Gretzky is, "We miss 100% of the shots we never take."
That's it.
And
That's it.
you can not take the chance, and you don't have many accomplishments. And even if you take that chance and you fail, at least you tried.
Of
So
course.
why not give yourself that chance? Go
Mhm.
out there and try something, because if you do, there's the chance also to succeed.
Of course.
But if you don't try it, then there's no chance to success.
I see. I
And
see.
it's always helped me to understand, if I go out there and at least try, then there's that even minimal chance that I could reach those goals,
Exactly.
and it helps
Exactly.
push me forward.
Mhm.
It also helps me to take calculated risks,
Of
to
course.
understand what the pros and cons are. And I always say if there was a burning building behind me and someone said, "Do you want to run into that burning building?" No, I don't. But if you told me my children were in that building, or that my husband was in that building, or that my parents were in that building, I would, of course, run into that building. And so by looking at what I have to gain by taking those risks, it helps push us forward and have an understanding that this is worth it. You can weigh out all the things that work for you and all the things that wouldn't work for you if you take this risk. And you often have much more to gain than you have to lose.
I love that. There's more to gain. Everything to gain, nothing to lose, basically.
Yeah.
Excuse me about that. Well, Nikki, of course, the website is nikkistone.com for our audience and listeners to know and to learn more about you, to connect more with you. Nikki, where else can we find you? We'd love to know more stories. Keep up with your life.
I also have a couple YouTube channels. One is Nikki Stone Gold, and the other one is Olympic Gold. Just YouTube and then the / Nikki Stone Gold and Olympic Gold. And one is a motivational minutes where I'm giving 1 minute each day to give that inspiration to start off your day on the right foot. And the other is videos of me speaking and giving and sharing advice that people can look to as well. And then also on LinkedIn, they can look up Nikki Stone and connect with me that way as well. Fantastic. And it's just so people know that the nikkistone.com is NIKKISTONE.
There you go. NIKKI is how we spell Nikki. nikkistone.com. Go check out her YouTube channels as well for your daily motivation. And if you aren't on LinkedIn already, go connect with her. If we aren't already connected, Nikki will definitely send you a connection request as well. Nikki, this is something just, like I kind of like wrapping this up on a high note. Olympics, of course, just wrapped up, and it was quite the watch. It was quite fun. How did you enjoy yourself? Any moments that stood out for you? What were the events that you watched?
So I watch everything.
I tried to watch everything too. Yes, yeah, I tried to watch everything too.
It's on 24/7, and I don't get a lot of sleep because I'm so inspired by what these athletes do. They're constantly pushing the envelope. I love seeing the families' reactions. It's so moving for me to see what I know what the families have put themselves through in order to help their athletes get there to the games. So it's not just the athlete's accomplishment, it's also the family as well. And going and seeing these athletes stand on the podium brings back a lot of memories to me, to remember that moment where they're placing the medal around my neck. I got to hear my anthem play, and to know that I was representing my country in such a strong way that it's something that I will cherish for the rest of my life.
Absolutely. I mean, it's the pinnacle. It's a moment, a pinnacle moment for any Olympic athletes. And of course, being an Olympian must feel amazing. And Nikki, of course, once again, I'm quite excited. I was very, very happy and excited to have an Olympian as a guest here on the show. And Nikki, thank you so much for coming on to the episode. Thank you so much for being here. To all our audience listeners. Well, I hope our audience listeners enjoyed this episode as well. I'm quite happy again with the episode. I'm sure you guys can tell. Go check out Nikki's website, nikkistone.com. Go check out her YouTube channels. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Thank you for watching this one, and we will see you on the next one. Bye-bye.
All right, so here's the thing. We try to get a little bit better every day, but we can't do it without you. So if you like the video, make sure to like and subscribe below. And if you have any comments, just leave them in the space under.